My name is Emily. I always thought that career was everything. Seriously. Maybe it's because I never had a real dad. He just wasn't there. And my mom, she did everything to keep us afloat, but she worked herself to the bone. I grew up watching people chase dreams and get something more than just survival, and I thought, I don't want to live like that. I will spin, work, set goals, and I'll achieve everything. My first real office day is still burned into my memory. I stood there in a crisp white blouse, a pencil skirt that was just the right length. Heart pounding, hands shaking just a little. They gave me a project and I crushed it. From that day, my life became a marathon. I worked like tomorrow would never come. Friends, I forgot about them. Relationships, they all seemed secondary. I wanted success, money, status. I wanted to rise and I wanted to rise fast. And honestly, it worked. Climbing the corporate ladder was brutal, but it was sweet. I got noticed, praised, invited to conferences, interviews, dinners with executives. I lived and breathed that life. But behind all of it, there was one detail I kept ignoring. My personal life was slowly falling apart. I met Alex when I was 25. He was amazing. Smart, funny, patient. The kind of person who makes you feel safe. And I loved him. I really did. But I loved my work more, always more. There were nights I would come home late, exhausted, but still checking emails. Alex would already be in the apartment, maybe cooking, maybe reading. And I would sit there, nodding, pretending I was listening, but my mind would be 100 miles away, spreadsheets, deadlines, meetings. He didn't say much at first. He smiled, tried to understand. But over time, the smile faded. "You're always at work," he said one evening, voice quiet, like he was afraid I'd snap at him. I'm just finishing things up," I said, trying to smile, though inside I felt everything twist. He looked at me for a long moment and then he left, just like that. No yelling, no drama, he didn't need it. The emptiness he left behind was louder than any fight could have been. I didn't cry that night. Not yet. But later, when the door shut and the apartment felt too big, too quiet, I realized he had taken a part of my life with him. Mom was sick. I always knew she wasn't in the best health, but I thought I could handle it. I could balance work, help her, be a normal person. I thought I had time. I thought I was invincible. Then one morning, my sister called. "Mom, she's really bad," she said. "She's in the hospital." My chest collapsed. I rushed there, my heels clicking against the hospital floor, my bag still full of work papers I had no time to look at. And there she was, pale, weak, but she smiled at me. "Hey, baby," she whispered. "You're doing so much." "I'm here, Mom. I'm here now," I said, holding her hand. She squeezed it back, her eyes tired but proud. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of realizing too late that my success meant nothing if I didn't have her, if I didn't have real people who loved me. The days blurred into nights. I stayed at the hospital as much as I could, but work never stopped. Emails, calls, deadlines, meetings that I couldn't skip. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt panic and guilt at the same time. And still, I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. But work wasn't kind. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was relentless. He wanted reports, presentations, projections all yesterday, and I gave them. I stayed late, came in early, skipped lunch, skipped dinners, skipped sleep. My team began to notice my exhaustion, but no one dared tell me to slow down. They knew better. Emily didn't stop. I remember one Thursday, I had barely slept, my eyes red, my hands shaking. I was supposed to present a client pitch. The room was full, high-level executives, important clients. My slides were perfect. I rehearsed my speech a dozen times. But halfway through, my throat went dry, my mind blanked for a few terrifying seconds. I swallowed hard, took a breath, and somehow continued. Everyone applauded at the end, but I sat at my desk afterward, staring at my hands, thinking, was this really worth it? I tried to reach Alex a few times after he left. I sent messages, emails, even voice notes. Nothing. Part of me was angry, part of me missed him desperately, but I couldn't stop working. And deep down, I knew I had no one to blame but myself. Mom's condition worsened. I stayed at the hospital as much as I could, but even there I was distracted, checking emails, typing reports on my phone, answering calls from the office. And every time I looked at her, I felt guilty. Guilty for not being more present, guilty for prioritizing spreadsheets over hugs, numbers over love. Then came the day it all hit me like a freight train. I got a call from the hospital in the middle of a meeting. My boss was droning on about projections, and I tried to focus, but my world tilted. It's Mom," the nurse said softly, heavy with words I didn't want to hear. She passed." The words didn't make sense. I was frozen. Papers in my hand crumpled without me noticing. Everyone around me kept talking, but I couldn't hear them. My mom, the one person who had always believed in me, who had pushed me to be strong because she couldn't always protect me, gone. I ran from the office. I barely remembered the ride home, the streetlights blurring past the window, the strangers walking by. I got to her hospital room, the empty bed, and just sat there. Sat with her absence pressing down on me like a heavy stone. Alex had been gone for months. I tried to call him to explain, to tell him I finally realized how much he mattered, how much people mattered. He didn't answer. He had moved on, and maybe rightfully so. I had left him behind for my ambitions, and now there was nothing left to bring him back. I wandered through her apartment afterward. Her perfume lingered faintly on the clothes she had hung neatly in the closet, the tea kettle she loved to use on rainy afternoons, her books stacked carefully on the nightstand. Every corner reminded me of choices I made, choices I thought were worth it. And I realized, bitterly, that nothing I had achieved at work could bring this back. Nothing. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, just looking at myself. My suit was pressed, my hair perfect, my nails immaculate. Everything on the outside screamed success. But inside, I was hollow. My eyes were red from crying, my hands trembled, and for the first time I couldn't find a single reason to feel proud of myself. The following weeks were a blur. I went back to work because that's what I knew. That's all I had. But I started noticing the little things I had always ignored. The emails I sent that no one really cared about, the meetings that felt empty, the promotions that didn't mean a thing. I was climbing a ladder with no top, no purpose. I kept thinking about Alex, wondering if he was happy, if he remembered me, if he missed me at all. Part of me wanted to reach out, but pride and fear kept me frozen. Part of me deserved this, deserved to feel the consequences of my choices. Then one night, after a particularly long day, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by silence. The city lights outside were beautiful, but I couldn't enjoy them. I started flipping through old photos on my phone, pictures of Mom and me when I was little, her smiling at me with that look that made me feel like I could do anything. And I realized something terrifying. I had taken her for granted. I had assumed she'd always be there. I had assumed I had time, but time had run out. I started small. I reached out to old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. I sent messages I had been meaning to send for decades. I went to places I had always wanted to go but never did because of deadlines. I tried to reconnect with family, cousins I hadn't talked to in ages. It was awkward, painful, but it was alive. Work was still demanding, of course. I couldn't just quit. I had responsibilities, bills, and a lifestyle I'd built over years. But I began setting boundaries. No emails after 9 p.m., no work on Sundays. I even took a few days off to visit my mom's favorite places, the little park she loved, the bakery where she got her morning coffee. It felt strange at first, to live like a normal human being, but slowly it started to feel right. Alex didn't answer any of my calls for months, and that was okay. I realized I wasn't trying to get him back. I was trying to get myself back. I was trying to learn how to be human, not just a worker, not just someone who checks boxes on a corporate ladder. There were nights I cried alone, missing Mom, missing what I had lost. But there were also nights I smiled, thinking of her telling me, "Emily, don't forget to live." And slowly, the hollow feeling inside me began to fill. I remember a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in a small cafe, scribbling in a notebook. I didn't have meetings, I didn't have deadlines, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just writing. I wrote about Mom, about Alex, about my childhood, about all the mistakes I had made. Writing was the first thing that felt truly mine in years. Months later, I stood at a small art exhibit, a gallery opening for a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. The room buzzed with people, but I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about status. I was just there, breathing, listening, laughing, feeling. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not perfect. Not successful in the way the world measures it, but alive. I still worked hard. I still had ambition. I still wanted to achieve things, but it wasn't my everything anymore. Life had taught me that some things are more important than job titles or raises. Life had taught me that love, connection, presence, that's what really matters. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping kids with homework, organizing small events. It felt right, not glamorous, not impressive, but meaningful. And it made me realize that my world was bigger than my office. My value wasn't measured in numbers on a spreadsheet. It was measured in moments, in smiles, in memories shared. I reconnected with friends. We had coffee dates, dinners, late-night walks. It was messy and imperfect, but it was alive. And slowly I started to feel like myself again, not the Emily who existed only in her work, but the Emily who could laugh, cry, care, and just be. Sometimes I would think of Alex. I wondered if he ever thought of me, if he ever regretted leaving. But those thoughts didn't hurt the way they used to. I realized I didn't need him to complete me. I realized I didn't need anyone to validate my worth. I only needed to honor the people I loved and the person I was becoming. Life didn't magically get easier. Work was still stressful, deadlines still loomed. There were still nights I felt exhausted, nights I cried over missed opportunities, nights I worried about what I had lost. But now I had balance. Now I knew that success without love and connection was empty. I learned to celebrate small victories, finishing a project without losing myself, reconnecting with a friend after years, making a stranger smile. I learned that every moment counts, that every conversation, every hug, every laugh is a brick in the foundation of a meaningful life. One evening, I went back to my mom's apartment. It was quiet, empty, but full of memories. I opened her old recipe book, read through her notes in the margins, and smiled through tears. She had left me so much more than possessions. She had left me wisdom, love, and a reminder of what matters. I still think about what I could have done differently. I still feel pangs of regret, but I try not to let it consume me. Instead, I let it guide me. Every decision I make now is shaped by what I've learned. That people matter more than projects, that love is more important than success, that life is fragile and precious. And sometimes, when I leave the office at sunset, I stop and look at the city skyline. I think about Mom, about Alex, about the life I've lived and the life I'm still building. And I feel a quiet sense of peace. Not because I have everything, but because I understand what I need. I may never get back the time I lost. I may never fix every mistake, but I've learned that it's never too late to start living, to connect, to care, to be present. And that, finally, feels like success worth having. I still cry sometimes, yes. I still feel the ache of absence. But I also laugh. I also love. I also live. And that, more than any promotion or accolade, is what matters. Life doesn't wait for you to finish a project. It doesn't care about your deadlines or emails. Life happens. And if you're not paying attention, you miss it. I'm Emily. I lost the people I loved most because I was blind to what really matters. But I'm learning, I'm trying. And every day, I remind myself, it's not about climbing the ladder. It's about who you hold close when you reach the top, and whether you even notice the view along the way. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. You can chase the world, you can win everything, but if you don't hold the ones you love close, you're winning nothing at all.